say, now the time has come for the lion to tell his own story. Yeah, the one them called Celestial I represent for the mighty lion voice. And this a shook up your planet tectonic. As me sip up my roots and tectonic. And you can't make me jump nor get panic. Have the engine a run like mechanic. Room.
Amina, the time has come for the lioness to tell our own story. No surrender, no retreat, we are Jaja soldier. Rougher than the streets, tougher than a boulder. Bigging up Lion's voice. Now put it, I Jollifer said that.
And to set the tone, we have to start with Kadamawi Haile Selassie I, his speech to the America, to the both, a joint session of Congress 1954, very famous speech. If you have not read it, it's online. Big up the Lion of Judah Society. They have a PDF copy of the selected speeches online. You can read it from there. It's searchable. It makes I and I work so much simpler. So big up as the reading Ras. Big up Lion of Judah Society. But read that speech to Congress. It's something you have to read.
All right, so this is an excerpt from His Majesty's speech to Congress that was given in his visit 1954. This is the first visit of an African head of state to the United States. First address of an African head of state to the both houses of Congress. So very important in the history of global geopolitics. But His Majesty says this as part of his speech. He says, "Of what interest is it to you then? You may well ask that I, the head of what must be for you a small and remote country, should appear before you in the midst of your deliberations. I do not take it upon myself to point out why Ethiopia is important to the United States. That you can best judge for yourselves, but rather to explain to you with brevity the circumstances which make Ethiopia a significant factor in world politics, since so much of world politics is today influenced by the decisions which you, members of Congress, reach here in these halls. It is perhaps not unimportant that I set out these considerations for you." So you can hear the emphasis on Ethiopia's being a significant factor in world politics.
The year is 1892, and the land of Ethiopia has been experiencing 4 years of terrible famine and drought. They call it the Kikuken, or the evil days. At least 1/3 of the human population and 90% of the cattle have died. The hyenas have feasted on so many carcasses that they have become overweight and barely able to move. Just when the people could take no more of the evil days, a woman named Wasiro Yeshimabe is giving birth in a place called Erjersa Gora. This is her 9th attempt to bring forth new life. Her previous 8 attempts only resulted in death. Will this child live? Thankfully, a healthy baby boy is born. His first cries are drowned by thunder and lightning flashes across the night sky. The heavens open up and torrential rain starts to fall. Ethiopia's drought is over, and the baby boy is given the name Tafari, meaning one to be feared or respected. LIDJ Tafari's father, Ras Tafari, is a very important man in 1892 Ethiopia. Although he is overjoyed at the birth of his newborn son, he cannot spend much time with him. Ras Tafari is the governor of Harar and must get back to the famous walled city to deal with its affairs. Furthermore, he is the foreign minister of Ethiopia, and having traveled to different places in Europe, he is very aware of the material and military advances they have made and the looming threats they pose to his country. Ras Tafari knows that the majority of Ethiopians have no idea what is coming, and that he has to work that much harder to secure the realm. LIDJ Tafari would grow up to become the legendary emperor, Haile Selassie I. To understand his journey, we must first understand the Ethiopia that he was inheriting and what it was like when he was born in 1892. Get your copy of Kwesi Bansu's book, Haile Selassie I, Ethiopia, Volume 1, The Rise of the Priestly Warrior Kings, and increase your knowledge about the history, politics, and culture of Ethiopia in 1892, and how it connects to the rest of African and world history at the time. Haile Selassie I, Ethiopia, Volume 1 is available for purchase at www.bookmanexpress.pub. Please visit for more information.
And one of our Lion Pride in the comments, Lion Pride from out of California, big up yourself, King, asked the question, what do Rastafari say about politics?
I have a question here. As Rastafari, where do we stand in politics? Yeah, I want to answer that question, Mokonen.
Well, Rastafari, where they stand in politics. His Majesty answered the question a long time. He said, democracy and republic, what do they signify? They're all forms of government. I personally think the Ethiopian constitution is the best political document for the diaspora in general. Because if you read the articles, it says Ethiopian subjects not only in Ethiopia, but in foreign territories. So there's the concept of empire, like England. England, through its language, because we speak in English, we become part of the empire. So my political views is that the emperor, in his constitution, he left a body, which is the Crown Council, for handle political affairs. So I would think that there's the highest tier amongst people of this endeavor and persuasion in order to advance the political idea, which is the constitutional monarchy, which the draft constitution, the new one.
Politics, and that, you know, it caught our attention because in America we are in politics season. Everything is politics, you know, all of the things that you see, and you know, the influences are all about politics. And this is a topic I think is very important for our family to openly address. So I want to take today's episode to talk about Rastafari and politics. Should Rastafari be political? Should we engage in politics? What is our political stand? Do we have a political party? We want to touch all of these topics in today's episode. I think it's so crucial. And to set the tone, we have to start with Kadamawi Haile Selassie I, his speech to the America, to the boat, a joint session of Congress, 1954, very famous speech. If you have not read it, it's online. Big up the Lion of Judah Society. They have a PDF copy of the selected speeches online. You can read it from there. It's searchable. It makes I and I work so much simpler. So big up as the reading Ras. Big up Lion of Judah Society. But read that speech to Congress. It's something you have to read.
All right. So this is an excerpt from His Majesty's speech to Congress that was given in his visit 1954. This is the first visit of an African head of state to the United States. First address of an African head of state to the both houses of Congress. So very important in the history of global geopolitics. But His Majesty says this as part of his speech. He says, "Of what interest is it to you then? You may well ask that I, the head of what must be for you a small and remote country, should appear before you in the midst of your deliberations. I do not take it upon myself to point out why Ethiopia is important to the United States. That you can best judge for yourselves, but rather to explain to you with brevity the circumstances which make Ethiopia a significant factor in world politics, since so much of world politics is today influenced by the decisions which you, members of Congress, reach here in these halls. It is perhaps not unimportant that I set out these considerations for you. So you can hear the emphasis on Ethiopia's being a significant factor in world politics, and then also stating how the United States influences so much of world politics. So His Majesty is showing us clearly that politics is something that had to be addressed. And when he comes to the political center of the world, he's making it very clear in political terms, because he didn't really go straight spiritual or straight economic, even though all of these things are referenced in the speech. But he starts off by setting the landscape in terms of the politics.
And the speech is really explaining Ethiopia's political importance to the United States of America, who acknowledges a phenomenon in the annals of world history. And he's explaining in detail some of the reasons why Ethiopia as a smaller nation is politically significant on the world stage. So I'm telling the item up front where we land is that politics is a part of reality. We have to engage in politics. Politics are important on all levels. However, this is where the distinction lies. I believe that as Rastafari, we must take the stance of being non-aligned. And we also have speeches from His Majesty's speech to the non-aligned nation, the famous conference in Bandung. So I think these principles on the global stage is something that we should apply as Rastafari on the local, national, international stage, meaning we acknowledge politics. There was a time when someone would say, "Bun politics, we now deal with politics." We can't afford to hold that position. I don't think it's a tenable position, because politics impacts, every aspect of your life once you live in a society. That's where the laws come from. That's the decision makers that impact the judiciary, the legislative, all of that, the executive, all of that is impacted by politics. So the non-aligned, what does that translate to? That translates into being independent. So even though I must engage in politics, I should never, as Rastafari, identify as Democrat or Republican, or identify as JLP or PNP. I have to be independent. Now, as individuals are free to vote with their conscience, but as a collective block, and big up Dr. Claude Anderson, who talks about powernomics and the importance of establishing an economic base, and then before you engage in any political enterprise, knowing how the political system works around the world. And I would say I need to do the same thing, is to develop our economic base, and as a bloc, I can exert leverage on the parties to execute the programs and projects that we would like to see get done. And regardless of who wins, I would still work with the power structure to implement projects and programs that benefit the people, the uprising. So in that way, I stay neutral, non-aligned, but at the same time, we still exert influence and impact wherever we are. because we have built that economic base.
Yeah, set tunes of judgment to judgment. Tunes of the house of the great King David. I shall pray for the peace of Ethiopia. Robber Babylon a spy, Babylon a informer. Have a plan for lock up all the youths them on the corner. Me have a plan for take the youths and move to Ghana. Build up Africa, link up with the farmers. Me a pre-peace more than the Dalai Lama. Can't trick the bingy man, even with Obama. How many youths them lock up for marijuana? How many shut up yo, who cause the drama? I'm a Gideon, spy verse spy, watch and peep and pure lie. TV program tap into Wi-Fi, Snapchat, Instagram, they put drones in the sky. That's why you gotta use your third eye. Hear the Most High, who made the birds them fly. The word, the sound, the powers inside. None of them punk can destroy the tribe, yo. Kendrick Lamar say, don't kill my vibe. Bingy man them down a yard say, earthquake and landslide. Babylon a groom, don't want no bride. Sit up in a room, them a plan and a hide. Babylon cruel, them want fi rule and divide. In a the school, them got the youths hypnotized. Evil and the wicked man, them soon collide. None of them can stop the sweeping tide, yo.